girls, guys and girls, Alpha BA for our Claude Cowork 101 workshop presented by the product builders. And so, first of all, let's actually go through the agenda for today. We're going to have the basic introduction. We're going to go a bit about the theory of, Claude Cowork, the ecosystem, and what you need to know. And then we're going to go into live demos. So we have a couple demos. And again, we can pause, we can ask questions, we can break apart. Again, this is a very interactive session, and the whole purpose is for you guys to learn. So we'll go at the pace of the whole group. And then after that, we have Q&A, more broader Q&A. If we didn't have time to cover the questions prior, we try to make specific time for specific questions pertaining to your own workflow, if time permits. Awesome. Now that that's out of the way, who are we, right? So first of all, my name is Olashbemi. I go by Ola. As you can tell, I'm the cool one. I'm my co-founder, Sheon, also known as Z. She's a serious one, as you can tell. And we pretty much started this company because we love building products. We both have product management background and software engineering background. And we felt that we needed to teach people how to build products in this AI world. And even beyond that, we also love to build products. So we build products for startups, enterprises, small businesses, and we even have our own internal products that we're developing, just to show people how to build product, and because we just love product. And yeah, that's kind of why we started this company, and we really hope you guys learn a lot, go out there to be builders, and solve real problems, really. So yeah. Okay, with that being said, I actually saw a fun stat that 62% of office workers spend that time doing repetitive work. And those repetitive work can be literally automated by AI. And one of the most low barrier entry or low barrier AI solutions that one can use as an office worker or a business owner or any professional you are is the Claude Cowork, Open AI's work, or Copilot Cowork sort of AI system that you can use. And the reason why we can use those systems will be discussed further down the line as we go into the bells and whistles of Claude Cowork. This solutions, this technology has been built in a way whereby repetitive tasks can be automated in a recurring fashion. And we're going to go deeper as to why that is. Okay. So as mentioned, this workshop is primarily about Claude Cowork. There are other sort of Cowork like technologies out there, from like OpenAI Work, Copilot Cowork, Perplexity Desktop used to some degree, and some other sort of niche agentic sort of workflows, right? But again, for this demo, it's about Claude Cowork. So now, what is Claude Cowork? Well, before you understand what Claude Cowork is, you need to understand, or we need to understand, what Claude Chat is, what Claude Code is, and then go into Claude Cowork. So everyone is familiar with Claude Chat. It is the one that everyone uses on a day-to-day basis. Now, Claude Chat is a very like turn-by-turn interaction. What does that mean? Whenever you ask a question or you're trying to do something with Claude Chat, you ask it a question, it asks you a question back, you respond, you go back and forth. And we call that a turn-by-turn interaction, right? And that is not very helpful when you want to automate a repetitive task. That is not helpful when you want to give your AI system a goal to then autonomously do the work for you, right? With the Claude Chat, you're still kind of a human in the loop in every single sort of interaction. And that is not helpful when you're trying to automate a repetitive task, okay? And then we have Claude Code. Claude Code was more so built for developers to accelerate, writing code and software, where literally AI is writing the code for you, right? And when Claude Code came out, it was a big boom because, again, people were interacting on the terminal, people were doing cool things and automating things within our systems using this sort of infrastructure. Now, Anthropic realized that Claude Code was a huge success. Why don't they build something for non-technical people whereby they can automate office work? They successfully automated software development and some, visualizations of scripting. Why not automate office work? And so Claude Cowork was built on top of Claude Code infrastructure architecture, right? And to the point I mentioned earlier about Claude Chat, whereby it's turn by turn, with Claude Cowork, it's autonomous. I can give Claude Cowork a task and it's going to go do it for me. I don't have to go back and forth with it. I've given it the goal, I've given the objective, it's going to find a way to solve it. And of course, if it needs my insights to make sure it gets the accurate answer, it's going to ask me, but for the most part, it does it on its own. And I can also make it recurring, whereby every 9 a.m. I want you to run this specific task, and it's done, right? And that is what actually saves me time versus going to chat and going turn by turn and copying and pasting, etc., etc. Okay, I'll pause there to see if there's any question on like this whole ecosystem I just mentioned.
I would love to see how you set up Claude. How would, if somebody was starting from scratch, how would they set up Claude Cowork?
Awesome. That is where we're going to go into our next segment, the bells and whistles of Claude Cowork. All right. You probably have gotten an email from us that, hey, this is how you should set up your Claude Cowork, or you need this subscription and what have you. So before you could have access to Cowork, you need the pro version of Claude of Anthropic's subscription, right? And it's $20 per month. I think it's very valuable for me. All right. So now, prior to last month, actually, you could only access Claude Cowork on Claude Desktop. But recently, Claude launched a web version for Claude Cowork. And I'm going to also speak about the differences between Claude Cowork on the web and Claude Cowork on desktop. But primarily, the Claude Cowork on desktop allows you to interact with your file system. So Claude Cowork on your desktop can go into folders and make actions on your behalf. Again, I will talk more deeper on that one once we go into Claude Desktop. Okay. Now, all you have to do to get into Claude Cowork is simply type Claude.ai, and that's it. And if you have a subscription, a pro subscription, you literally will just see chat Cowork. That's it. And you are in the Claude Cowork interface. All right. I'm going to walk through some few things to realize within the Claude Cowork interface. And again, feel free to pause me for any question, or whenever I take a pause, you can ask a question. All right. So key things to know. Within Claude Cowork, you have projects. And I personally would recommend people, because again, when you're using Claude Cowork, you're trying to solve a problem, you're trying to automate something, you're trying to be more efficient. And most of the time, you're probably working on a project by project basis. So if you are launching a product, right, you probably have a specific workspace for marketing and go-to-market of ideation. You probably have a space for pricing ideation. You probably have a space for branding ideation. And that's how I typically recommend one should work versus lumping up every single thing together. And the reason why I mentioned that is because, as you can see within project, you have context. Now, if you model up your pricing context, your software context, your design context into one project, it could affect the output of Claude, right? Again, because it's like, okay, this is so much going on. But if you give a concise context for each project or for each use cases, you tend to have more higher, better results, right? And so within the Claude Cowork interface, you have context. This context comes in the form of different ways. You can actually manually add the context. Let's say you're working on a marketing proposal for a client, right? You pull everything about the client within this context and what have you. And as time goes on, Claude also adds context by itself. Like, okay, I know that this project, this is what the user wants me to focus on, and it adds it to the memory for that project. So the memory for this project or for this client is isolated within this project. So that is why I would recommend you want to split things in project. The other thing you see here on this interface is instructions. So let's say you're working with this client and you guys have a certain lingo, right? Let's say they call QuickBooks QBO, right? Or they have a certain abbreviation, or they like, their project presentation in a certain manner. And you want Claude to think in that manner every time it's working on this project. You literally just put an instruction saying, hey, these are how I want you to put my output, XYZ, XYZ, right? So instructions are very powerful, especially if you want a specific flavor to its output. The other thing in this interface to mention is schedule tasks. This is the huge time saver. Once you realize that I'm doing a certain task over and over and over again, I highly recommend you set up recurring tasks. And again, I'm going to go over recurring tasks in one of our demos, but these are very, very powerful tools to have in your arsenal. Okay. All right. The other thing to mention as well is customize. This is what we're going to play around a lot with. So within customize, you have skills, connectors, plugins, and memory. So within skills, skills pretty much are essentially special way or special things Claude can do. What do I mean by that? As an employee or as a worker or as a professional, we all have different skill set. Whenever you're building a product, you need to have the skill set to market. You need to have the skill set to price right. You need to have the skill set to build products. You need to have the skill set to design. It's the same way you're trying to make your AI, your general Claude Cowork ecosystem to be more specific or to be more specialized when doing a specific task. So if you find out that you are doing a specific thing over and over again, I also highly recommend you create a skill for it, right? So if you realize that, okay, I'm writing a lot of articles and I'm always asking Claude to like review this article for me, I always recommend you create a skill for that. So you can create a writing critique. Say, hey, I wanted to critique my article all the time based on this format. You want to create a skill for that. And again, I'll show you how you can create a skill. You can create the skills in a couple of ways. You can literally just interact with Claude and say, hey, Claude, I want to create a skill. And it will ask you some few questions and you create it. Or you could literally manually write out your skill instructions. But I highly recommend you ask Claude to create a skill. And there is another way you can create a skill whereby after every chat interaction, and you've told Claude to do a certain task, so you can say, hey, based on this interaction, create a skill for me, right? Again, I'll show you guys how to do that in our demo session, okay? The next thing is connectors. These are the most powerful things. This is what makes Claude Cowork unique. This is what makes Claude Cowork powerful. Because again, as professionals, more than likely you're working on different platforms, right? You are responding to people on email. You are make sure your calendar is right so you can book leads or meetings with clients. You are updating your CRM. You are doing lead enrichments. All this sort of fun stuff you are doing in different tools. And so by connecting these tools onto your Claude Cowork ecosystem, you are giving Claude the ability to go and do tasks on your behalf, right? And again, we're going to see this live in demo. Again, you can always add a bunch of connectors. Claude Cowork ecosystem has over, I think, 1,800 plus applications connected, and these are popular software applications, right? But if for some reason your application is not on there, you can simply add a custom connector, right? And to add a custom connector, you just need to connect your MCP server URL. Again, MCP is Model Contacts Protocol. If there is more question on this, we can answer this down the line. But again, you can bring your own custom connector as well, so long as it has an MCP server setup. Okay. The next thing is plugins. Plugins are essentially just a box of goodies, right? It's where you have your skills, connectors, a bunch of skills and connectors put together. So let's say you come to the program and say, hey, I want the program builders to help my company move more faster. More than likely, what we'll probably do, it depending on the use cases, what we probably would do is like, okay, create a bunch of skills for your company to use, right? And then make it a plugin so that your HR department can use it, your legal department can use it automatically, so they don't have to start creating manual skills on their own. One popular one is the Anthropic Small Business one. As you can see, it's a bunch of skills that Claude has access to utilize, or you can also call manually for Claude to utilize to be more efficient in doing its task. Okay. And as we all know, memory is just, the things you want Claude to remember, right? You can tell it not to remember. You can tell it to remember depending on your preference. Okay. I'm going to pause there to see if there's any questions. Okay. Awesome. Another thing I want to mention as well is artifacts. Artifacts are very powerful. Artifacts essentially are things you can share with other people. These are outputs that Claude has created that you can share with other people. So you can tell Claude to create like a dashboard real quick, and you can share it out to people as a form of artifact, and people can interact with those artifacts. So these are powerful when you're cross collaborating with different people and you want to kind of give a visual out real quick. Okay. All right. Well, all that being said, before I go into the demo, I'm going to show you the Claude desktop. So like I mentioned, what makes Claude desktop powerful versus Claude in of itself or Claude Cowork web is that Claude desktop can interact with your file system. I can literally add a new folder, right? I say, hey, I want you to interact within Claude, this folder system I created for my client, and it can create, delete, update any file that you've given it access to. But it always asks for permission before it does those things. But that is what makes it very, very powerful. And again, one of our demos will go over how this works. Okay. Now, before I go into the demo, are there any questions? Okay. I'm assuming there's no question. Let's keep on rolling. Awesome. Now let's get into the fun stuff, the demo. I have 3 demos presented, and I'll try to be as articulate, but at the same time as swift as possible so we can leave time for questions. Okay, so I go to a lot of conferences, and sometimes I'm always behind on emails, responding to people's messages from my friends to business, and I want to automate that process, or I want to be more efficient in that process. So I simply asked Claude that, hey, Claude, can you actually just triage my inbox and, kind of let me know what's actually important, what I need to decide, or what I could just ignore for now, right? And again, as mentioned with connectors, I give Claude access to these specific tools. And because it has access to these tools, it can go in and actually read the data and give me the output I desire. Again, so it actually tried my inbox. This is all the things I need to respond to. These are things that I need a decision. These are things that I could simply ignore because, again, why do I need to respond to this one, right? Another thing I was like, okay, Claude, because again, I'm trying to get leads and I'm trying to set up meeting with my client. I told Claude to say, hey, if there's any sort of new clients, this is our company's website. This is our contact information. This is how they should like reach out to us for like more details. Or like, hey, once these leads are confirmed, can you actually update my CRM so that I don't have to go back to my CRM and manually add these users, right? So just like that, I've automated my lead to CRM updating pipeline, dare I say. And before Claude makes any sort of key decision, it either saves it as draft, or it asks for your approval before updating something within your CRM. So it's like, hey, do you like this format? Is this format okay? And I'm like, yeah, this is great. I love it. All right. And then it approves this. And once I approves this, it literally, I kid you not, updates my CRM for me. And just like that, my CRM has been updated. All right. And then it also drafted an email for me to respond to. So let me actually show you guys what that looks like. So when I go to my email and I go to my draft, these are things that Claude drafted for me. I didn't draft this. I didn't tweak this, just based on context that I've given it. And I can simply say send. This is great, right? And then in my CRM, it literally added these users for me, right? I didn't add these users myself. These were added by Claude because I approved what I wanted it to do. Simple. Okay. And then I was like, you know what? This is perfect. I love this. I also want to make sure my team members are aware of things that are going on as well. So anytime you see an update that requires emergency support, right, or it's a new lead so that someone on my team can follow up with that person, I want you to send that to the Slack channel, right? And so it literally says, hey, I saw an unhappy client and I saw a bunch of leads. I'm going to send them to Slack so that your team members can work on these things. So when I go to my Slack, within my leads channel, I literally say, like, hey, these are new leads that came up. These are new clients. These are inbounds, XYZ, XYZ. And I can see sent by Claude, right? So we know that this came from Claude and not a human. So if there is any sort of mistake or confusion, we know where we can trace it back. And this is what we call audits trail within, the sort of tech security world, all right? And then afterwards, with support, it's like, hey, this is critical. This is that a customer that is not happy. You should probably look into this and what have you. So me and my customer support team can come in here and tend to this matter. Okay. And then remember, one of the clients I had to respond to, we had to like set up a time to talk. And I was like, Claude, can you actually just look at my calendar and make sure that we can have it? And I just told Claude, like, look at my calendar and schedule an appointment with this person for me with the Google Meet invite and the description we need. And so if I go to my Google Calendar, where's my stuff? There we go. When I go to my Google Calendar, I literally have a meeting set up for me, right? And what we're going to talk about, the link, the people who need to be invited, reminders, and everything of it. I didn't have to like go back and forth to look at my calendar and that calendar to get a meeting on the calendar. All right. Now I mentioned artifact. So because again, this is a shared inbox with a bunch of people, or like I want to give updates to my team and what have you. I took Claude to create a page for me to just reload this every morning, right? So every morning, the team and I will come in here, we'll look at things we need to respond to, things we could just ignore, right? And then once somebody comes in here and like says, hey, we've responded to this person, they can take this off. This has been handled. And every morning, this is updated for my team to see from a visual perspective. And these are artifacts I can literally just share with anybody within my team or even brother, right? And then now I'm like, okay, this is a repetitive task that I do every morning. I literally just told Claude, hey, based on this task I'm giving you, based on this interaction, can you create a scheduled task that runs every morning at 1 p.m.? And literally, it's literally like saying, hey, this is the task I'm going to create. This is how I'm going to notificate you and everything at a specific time. and I'm gonna run this. And once I click schedule, it's gonna schedule it. But I'm not gonna do that because I already have one scheduled. And literally every morning at specific time, it runs this and looks through my inbox and say, hey, these are things you need to respond to. Again, I've not replied to these people because they're on draft, but you get my point, whereby it tells me things I could ignore and what have you. And so that way I'm very productive before the start of my busy day ahead. That is demo number one. Are there any questions before I move on? Questions, concerns? All right, I will keep on chugging along. All right, now the next one is our conference prospect outreach email. So again, I went to a conference. I met a lot of cool people, right? And I just don't have time to start doing research into every single one of them. I don't have time to, like, start drafting personalized emails and update my CRM. So I told Claudia, like, hey, I went to this conference and I only know the person's name and where they work at. I don't know their title. I don't know the sector. I don't know anything about their business. Could you go do the research for me and send a draft email? Then I will look at it and then I'll respond to it. Okay. And then I give Claude, again, what makes Claude Cowork different from like Claude Chat is I give it a goal, I give it a task, and it's literally walking me through its train of thoughts. It knows that, hey, I have to read this, I have to do this, after this and that. And another beautiful thing I want to mention is if you feel like Claude is doing the wrong thing, you can actually steer Claude towards the right way. So I can say, hey, actually, you're reading the wrong file. Read this file instead. Or like, instead of reading and passing these prospect files, I want you to go do X, Y, Z, right? So you can actually stop Claude at this track to do something more efficient, okay? And so I gave Claude this instruction. It literally went for hours, going through a string of thoughts, looking at tools they could call, doing this research and every single thing, all right? And this was the first draft. I was like, okay, this is good, but we could do better, right? So I give Claude access to a lead enrichment pipeline. Again, before he changes my CRM, it asks me questions like, is this fine? Is this good? I'm like, yep, it's good. And I'm like, okay, good. You found these people information through my lead enrichment tool called Clay. Now I want you to draft an email to the top 3 leads based on what my business does. Another thing I asked Claude was like, hey, based on my business, who do you think I should actually talk to right now? And based on what they're facing right now. And then I drafted an email to the top 3 leads and updated my Slack so my team is aware of the new leads I have found or I plan to reach out to in my business. Another thing, like I mentioned with my lead enrichment tool, I don't have that email, but because again, I know tools that can find people's email, I literally just ask like, hey, can you find this person's email for me? Literally, can you try getting that email with Clay? Because I know Clay can do that. And then he found that email, and just like that, I can reach out to this prospective client. Let me go to my email. I can reach out to this prospective client. Let me see if this is right. This is the wrong one. There we go. I can reach out to this prospective client and say, hey, Park, it was nice meeting you at this XYZ, open my chat and everything. This sounds very human. I didn't change anything. This is Claude that generated this for me. All right. And again, like I mentioned, it can update this in my Slack so that my team knows the leads that we have incoming or leads to consider. Okay. Now that is that for demo 2. I will pause for any questions. Okay, no questions. Now, the next demo, which I find very exciting, this one is interacting a lot with the file system. Again, I just go back from my conference, right? And I took a bunch of, I spent a lot of money and I want Claude to pretty much pull my transaction, clean it up, reconcile it, and update my QuickBooks account. All right. And so I gave Claude the goal, right? And I gave it the right guardrail. This is just basic prompt engineering here. And Claude took its time to like actually think through things, evaluate things, flag things that I need to review and everything. Again, this receipt is within my file system. It's literally, I uploaded this on my file on my laptop, and then Claude is analyzing this within my file system. And it created a new CSV for me to review as well, which we'll go over as well. Okay, so I click Claude this task. I want you to go to my file system. I want you to review these things. I want you to flag what I need to consider. And then I want to create an Excel sheet. He created this Excel sheet for me and lets me know things I need to look into, things I need to change, and what have you. And then after that, I was like, okay, this is great. I'm fine with that. Then I asked it to update my QuickBooks, right? And so if I go to my QuickBooks account, I gotta log in again. If I go to my QuickBooks account and I go to my expenses, these expenses were logged for me. These were from the receipts I added in my file system. So I didn't have to come in here to manually put this, put the category, put the title, put this and that and that. All this was automatically from Claude within a matter of minutes. And these could have taken me like hours, depending on the volume of receipts I had to put in and clean up and reconcile and what have you. And I even have a spreadsheet that I can send to my bookkeeper to also like cross-validate and whatnot. Another thing I want to call up as well is you can see that it says it spun up 6 sub-agents. It literally says that, okay, I need to validate this, I need to validate this and that. So it's smart enough to call agents as needed. Like I mentioned, Claude Cowork is like this of big boss, or like this of like all-in-one sort of employee, but it also has like sub-agent skills that can then go do specific tasks. So it's smart enough to know what to do at the right time, right? And so this is just really, really powerful in my opinion. And I'm like, okay, you know what? It will say I can build it as a skill. You can save this as a skill because I noticed that this is a very big task, right? And you can always trigger this every single time versus like me giving it this prompt. I can just say, hey, slash expense reports skill. This is my receipt. Do it for me, right? And again, I could see like this artifact that I can share with my my engineering team to like validate and every single thing. Okay, awesome. So that is that on the demos. I'm going to pause there for any questions. Okay. Okay. If there is no question, I pretty much, let me just make sure I'm good. Okay. Yeah, that is that for pretty much it. We've gone through over the bells and whistles. We have gone through other alternatives, and we've gone through the demos, and now it's Q&A time. But before we go into Q&A, just want to let you guys know again, we at Product Builders, we are very passionate about helping businesses